Hello and welcome to my review of the Tyranid Broodlord. If you buy him separately, he will set you back £25. It's a fair bit of money, but luckily he comes in the brand new Tyranids Start Collecting set for £50. The Trigon model in that set, or Trigon Prime or Morlock, however you want to build him, is £36 separately. So you're already making your money back if you get the set for the Trigon and the Broodlord. Unfortunately for me, I already have a Broodlord, and this is the Broodlord that was in the set that I've recently just made. I've just changed his arm. That's the only thing you can really do. You can't really change the feet around, or you can cut the nubs off the hands to rotate them slightly, but you can't really change that much with this Broodlord model, so just bear that in mind. Unfortunately, I'm not a big fan of the Start Collecting sets where you get an HQ or a single miniature that's in one pose, because you're typically going to have that model duplicated. Now, if they have the Hive Tyrant in it, I know the Hive Tyrant is, £8 more, but if they have that model in it as well, or even some warriors, then I think it would be better. But I understand where they're coming from. Put a Broodlord in there because the set comes with Gene Stealers, and it's pretty much a big Gene Stealer at the end of the day. I've also got the Patriarch with me as well, which is in I think one of the Gene Stealer Cult sets. Now this is odd because this one's on a round base and holding a Space Marine head, and it's got similarly long rending claws, but it's got some really nice spikes on his back, and his carapace is looking a bit more funky. It's just a newer model really, but it's also got this piping that he's stood on. He's, I want to say smaller, but they're actually very similar in size. He's more in a hunched sort of pose though. But anyway, this isn't about the Patriarch, this is about the Broodlord. So like I said, £25, it's a fair bit of money if you were to get him separate, so it's great that he's in the Start Collecting set, and if you've never had one before, that's an even bigger reason to get the set. I think it's a great looking model, really fierce looking. It's got these long rending claws and these little hands, these 4 fingers that's kind of joined with these claws on the end. It's got this long tongue with a barbed point to it, and these huge teeth, and this really sharp sort of horn. You can see the veins in his head. It's really stressing there. And he's got these big long claws on his feet. And then he's standing on this Tyranid construct, like a capillary tower sort of vein or something like that. And then he's got this tail, this carapace, this exoskeleton kind of thing going on, with this scythe-like tail tip. This just reminds me, on all the Tyranid models actually, the exoskeleton. So it's got skeleton over the flesh basically. With these kind of fibre bundles, it just reminds me of Dragon Ball Z and Cell and Frieza, in particular Frieza, because if you look at the drawings and things and the artwork for that, you'll see these kind of vein bundles, muscle bundles underneath the bone sort of exoskeleton. It's a great look. And it's great for sort of shading and things like that. So really nice looking model, really beefy. His HQ choice, I'll just do some size comparison. So you saw him next to a Gene Stealer, so as you can see, yeah, he'd look very good sort of leading like a Gene Stealer force, Gene Stealer army. Sort of got more of a presence than a Hive Warrior, definitely bigger than a Hive Warrior, if you can see that, which is another troop choice. So it would be great for him to sort of lead those two. But then where he falls down on is obviously he's a beefed up Gene Stealer, so he's smaller than a Carnifex, which is just there, definitely smaller than Carnifex. And then obviously comparing him to a Flyrant or Hive Tyrant with wings, even just a normal Hive Tyrant, I think would be taller than him, just on his legs. So he is dwarfed somewhat at some point from Carnifexes to Hive Tyrants, and yeah, we won't even put the Trigon in there because Trigon's a big boy. And then finally, I'll just show you a size comparison with a Space Marine. The Space Marine would be cowering in fear, well, okay, well not fear, but would be slightly concerned about this Xenos creature about to descend on him, especially with claws almost as long as his leg, really. Yeah, so I hope that helps. Comparison, definitely a big HQ choice compared to, you know, other armies' HQ choices. Okay, so this is my part of the review where I go through all the rules. Now, you'll be happy to know that the rules in the little Start Collecting Tyranids instruction book are the same as in the codex, which is great, but without the codex you're not really going to know what synapse and shadow in the warp means. That goes into that in the codex. And in your new Tyranid codex you'll find him in the HQ section. He's a power level of 8 with a points value of 162. And he comes equipped with monstrous rending claws, which are 0 points. So it is 162 points base. You don't need to be buying anything else for him. So 162, it's not that pricey really for an HQ with this kind of stat line, and I'll talk to you about the stat line now. So the stat line for a Broodlord is movement 8 inches, so it's fast. It's as fast as Gene Stealers, so he can keep up with them. Weapon skill is 2+, which is fantastic. Doesn't have a ballistic skill, doesn't need one. Strength is 5, that's great. Toughness is 5, even better. 6 wounds, 6 attacks, leadership of a whopping 10, and a save of 4+. Yes, he does have an invulnerable save of 5+2 because he has lightning reflexes. Now, the weapons that he has are called monstrous rending claws. The strength is user, so that's strength 5. AP is -3, so good against marine equivalents, and damage is D3. You can also re-roll failed wounds for this weapon. Not on a 1 or anything like that, but with a strength 5 you can re-roll the failed wounds. Also, when you make a wound roll of a 6, the hit is resolved with an AP of -6. Come off it. Come off it. 6 attacks, you get a couple of 6s, -6 AP please, and a damage of 3. So they get a damage of 3 for those -6 AP attacks. He's horrific in close combat, really is. So the abilities, he's got Synapse and Shadow in the Warp, pretty much means he can just go about his business, do what he wants, and models within 12 inches of him pass the morale. And then Shadow in the Warp, Psychers are affected by him. They must subtract 1 from any psychic tests they make if they're within 18 inches of him, basically. Lightning reflexes I mentioned before, so 5+ invulnerable, save of 4+ isn't the best, and 5+ invulnerable again isn't the best, but at least it does get an invulnerable save. Swift and deadly, model can charge even if it advanced during this turn. Brood telepathy, you can add 1 to hit rolls in the fight phase for Hive Fleet Gene Stealer units within 6 inches of any friendly Hive Fleet Broodlords. So that's fantastic. You get your 20 Gene Stealers with him, and all of a sudden their 3+ pretty much becomes a 2+. So come on, with all of his attacks and your 20 Gene Stealers pumping out 80 attacks on a 2+, wow, horrific. And on top of all that, as well as being a close combat monster, he's a little bit of a psyker. He can attempt to manifest 1 psychic power in each friendly psychic phase and attempt to deny 1. And he also knows Smite and 1 psychic power from the Hive discipline. So he's got all those attacks. He can charge if he advances. He positively affects your Gene Stealers and knows Smite and another psychic power. So that's pretty awesome, actually. He is tailored very much towards Gene Stealers and helping them out. You know, he doesn't have the same kind of strength or toughness, and he's got half the wounds as a Hive Tyrant, and the saves are worse. You know, the Hive Tyrant's got 3+ save and a 4+ invulnerable. So stat line wise, he's not as good as a Hive Tyrant as an individual model. And a Hive Tyrant is, you know, slightly more power points, his power point of 9 instead of 8, but he does buff the Gene Stealers very well, and the only thing that the Hive Tyrant will do will just increase the Synapse ability to 18 inches. That's the only sort of buff. So Hive Tyrant has less attacks with a slightly better strength, with better saving throws, better toughness, better invulnerable save, but the monstrous rending claws are monstrous. You know, you can re-roll the failed wounds rather than what you get with the Hive Tyrant, which is re-rolling hits of a 1. And then you get that AP -6 and damage damage 3. This thing has a potential of ripping apart many multi-wound creatures and targets. It'd just be nice if it included some mortal wounds, maybe 1 or 2 mortal wounds or something like that. But either way, horrific damage output potential for this model. And that's all I really wanted to say about the Broodlord. I think it's a fantastic looking model. Would have been nice if they'd sort of made it so that you can, you know, move the arms about, move the head about, because the head unfortunately is part of the, you know, the body of it. Would have been nice if you could move the legs, because I really like the concept of a bigger, sort of meaner gene stealer. And also rules wise, he's pretty damn good. But you've just got to make sure you have a great delivery method, because otherwise I can see him getting shot up with his 4+ save along with the rest of the gene stealers. So you really got to pounce them out of somewhere and ambush the enemy. You can't really have them slogging across the battlefield, unless you think you can advance and charge units within sort of turn 2 or something like that. Anyway, what do you think about the Broodlord? What has been your greatest close combat with him? Please do put it in the comments below. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. For the Norn Queen.